World of Warcraft, released in 2004 and ever since, has been the poster child of the MMO genre. For the past 2 decades and then some, every new MMO that has come and gone attempting to be the fabled WoW killer. Yet the question has always remained as to what made WoW so special. I remember seeing all those commercials on TV as a kid. Rest in peace, Ozzy, you will be missed. But since I was very, very poor, I never got to see what all the hype was about. So perhaps it is due time to finally sate that childhood curiosity. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. I'm Kurojakku. Join me on a journey as we uncover what it's really like to be a fresh, blind player in today's World of Warcraft. I am not Josh Dreyfus. I'm more like the Timu Robert Stark of Timu Robert Starks, the far less charming American spin-off. It's like Top Gear, minus the bit about slapping a producer. That we know of. Like and subscribe for more MMO content in the future, more about how you can support the channel at the end. Whether it's a relic of its time or a timeless classic. How bad was World of Warcraft?
It was too late.
Well, we're off to a terrible start, as World of Warcraft is in fact not on Steam, and I had the misfortune of having to install Battle.net of all things just to make this video. Oh, the things that I do for you. There is, however, a free trial, and that just so happens to be my favorite price, so let's give it a go. Surely they won't paywall us before we get a good taste of what's on offer. If that sounds like foreshadowing, that's because it is. Now, we will talk more on monetization later, but for now, let's get on with the most important part of any MMO, the character creation. It seems we have 2 separate factions to choose from, with separate storylines, I would hope. And your race determines not only which faction you're in, but also which classes are available to play. Each race also seems to have unique racial traits, not necessarily a bad thing, but that does tend to lead to a race meta if the gap is too wide between them. And what's this? A Death Knight, eh? Well, that's an awful lot like Dark Knight, so let's just find a race that fits and we can... Oh, I see. Alright, game. As it turns out, some classes are locked behind reaching level 10, and in a game where your class selection is permanent, this seems like a very annoying restriction to have. And why 10 of all things? If it was a high-level complex job, maybe I could understand it. But 10 levels is basically the tutorial. Why not just give players the option right away at that point instead of wasting their time? Sure, not everyone will want to play Death Knight or one of the other locked ones, but someone eventually will, and that someone is me. But fine, I'll make a temporary character and come back to this later. I intended to give both alliances a go anyway. I went with a Worgen Rogue since those idle animations looked really slick and the idea of a Wolfman assassin seemed like a neat concept to me. Character creation is fine, if not a bit bare bones, though I do have a serious issue with the fact that the scars on the wolf skin being on his right side. Meanwhile, the scars for the humans are on the left side. Make it make any sense at all, would you please? At least put them all on the left or all on the right. Is this a nitpick? Yes, but that's what I'm here to do. I am a YouTuber. Anyways, gave him a random name in more ways than one and set off on my grand adventure.
You are a soldier of the Noble Alliance, a coalition of kingdoms upholding the ideals of valor and justice across Azeroth. Your commanders have learned that an expedition bound for the Dragon Isles has been shipwrecked on a deserted island. As a bold new recruit, you have joined a rescue mission led by the dragons Wrathion and Kalecgos. It now falls to you to find the lost expedition and see them safely to the Dragon Isles.
Graphics seem fine, if a tad chunky. Movement tutorial isn't intrusive. Quest giver is kinda hot, and right away we are thrust into battle, so behold, combat! Let's see those sweet prowling warg animations in action, and okay, never mind. Nope, we just stand straight up with our hands at our side. Whatever happened to all that flair and pomp that we had just moments ago? Each race and even class had its own stance that really made them feel unique, but once you get into the game, it's just this basic idle stance with no sense of life or character to it. Very, very disappointing. Clearly, they can pose a character properly. This just feels like laziness. This is not a werewolf anymore. This is just a furry. Whatever, let's just move on and get shipwrecked on what can only be dubbed Tutorial Island. Stakes are low, danger is non-existent, but I do like this little touch of a combat tutorial we get a few quests in. It does not overstay its welcome and does a good job of introducing, help, forcing, actually, the new player to engage with the basic builder-spender mechanics of the class they're playing. Setting up these ideas early on not only creates a sort of slow burn to stack onto over time, it also gives you something to engage with no matter how small right from the jump. A certain other MMO could learn a thing or two from this. It seems they even come back to this again a little while later too, though I'm not 100% sure if this was a curated quest for Rogue in particular, but it did involve me using stealth to avoid some sort of world boss and gather herbs to craft a poison. Not only do you learn that stealth exists, but also the nuance of interactions breaking stealth and so on. Genuinely, a well-made tutorial that does not feel forced or out of place. If it really is an additional quest just for Rogue, it fit into the zone quest seamlessly. A few nitpicks aside, you're doing well for yourself so far, WoW. Speaking of the quests, the plot is whelming. Not the handsome British man in a waistcoat who organizes his skill bar in alphabetical order kind of whelming. More like a day at the DMV where there's just enough of a line to be a nuisance, but not nearly enough of a line to allow for a quick nap kind of whelming. It's fine. There's not really a whole lot to it. The world building hasn't been made very clear, and everything boils down to go here and stab X, with the occasional gimmick quests like turning into an ogre to sneak into a camp.
Wave at, then all will bow before us. This one got some moves.
Only to then have the very next quest be turn around and stab everything in the very same camp, sort of defeating the point altogether when you think about it. But hey, at least the NPCs are voiced to some extent. Not fully voiced, mind you, but it is a step up from speaking to mimes all day. Our time on Tutorial Island closes with the first dungeon introduced, and oh, I like this very much. It's a small touch, but making the player open up the duty finder to access the dungeons. Even though you will be joined by an NPC support for the duration, at least make sure said player knows how to queue up for dungeons with others in the future. It's clear whoever designed this introduction segment knew what they needed to do to get someone on board, and it's got me quite optimistic for what's to come. Don't you worry, that joyful outlook will soon be shattered, and we shall come back to that later, preferably with a lot of alcohol. Behold, dungeons. Now, not much to it really. Granted, this is a tutorial, so I imagine it is meant to be pretty basic. Hell, the only real thing of note is the stupid, mind-bogglingly dumb idea to have you, the player, on a squishy melee DPS pull the boss. Seriously, I died multiple times trying to even start this fight. The NPC tank just stands there telling you to do her job. She's able to pull the trash mobs along the way, so why not the one that actually matters most? Eventually, I figure out that I can pop all my movement speed boosts, stab the boss, and tactfully retreat until my tank stops watching TikToks and actually decides to do something useful. We run around, stab things, stab a dragon who turns out to be a dude, get a neat little cutscene, and are whisked away from Tutorial Island just in time to hit that sought-after level 10. So, say goodbye to Randam because it's back to character creation once again, and say, that's rather odd. I swear these weren't here before. Just when I thought I unlocked everything, a slew of new races appeared that are locked behind level 40 for some bizarre reason. Who knows, perhaps there's another dozen being hidden from me as well, but oh well, I already know I'm playing a blood elf. So, I make my true form, and off we go. Finally, we can truly start the game. Kurojakku, Dark Knight, Death Knight Extraordinaire has arrived. As it turns out, this class is a little special, and starts off at level 8 with its own unique intro. Well, Tutorial Island was a solid enough time, so I'm sure this curated class-specific intro will be just dandy. No, it was not just dandy. It doesn't even approach the vicinity of dandyhood. It was a boring mess of generic quest design, no inbuilt tutorials beyond the very first quest, multiple bugs like this peasant woman who seemed to be cursed with immortality and lay shrieking as a dozen random Death Knight NPCs slap at her for the rest of time. Rumor has it she's still screaming to this very day. Oh, and do not get me started on the fucking death gate that doesn't seem to work at all until you finish the entire intro. More on that ending in a moment. But why the fresh hell did you even give me the option to put this light-forsaken skill on my bar this early in the first place? My best guess is the cause of this bug and or lack of polish is that the ebb and hold you start in is a special intro-only version on the back end. Meanwhile, the actual ebb and hold, the one tied to the skill in the first place, is locked behind finishing the intro, leading to this frustrating disconnect when you're given the skill just around the time you need to report back to the hold in the first place. You could have made a temporary Deathgate skill that looks identical, yet goes to the intro hold and gets replaced after the intro in secret. Hell, you could have, I don't know, not given me the goddamn skill at all. Wait for the finale quest to grant me this power as a quest reward, you absolute lemmings. Then there's the ending. So you see, this whole time, we've been running around playing the comically evil villain. A good time. I've had fun. Stabbing screaming peasants. It's just your average Tuesday. Seriously, these writers are allergic to the concept of nuance. But sure, fine. I can roleplay a poorly made American version of Fable. Why not? Lich King brings us back from the dead, tells us to torment the locals. We go, yes, my lord, and introduce the peasantry to the business end of a broadsword, as one does. Put up with some very awkward gimmick quests, and in the final moments, after a grand assault on some church, all momentum is halted for a very slow, forced cutscene revealing Homeboy's unresolved daddy issues, and that's it. Well, that was awkward, but let's get back to killing silly little paladins. Wait, what do you mean they are the allies now? We're the baddies. We're the bad guys. What was the point of any of this? I don't understand what's happening. Turns out, we are not the baddies. Even though I am playing the Horde, and it turns out they are not the baddies either. They're just misunderstood, as I've been told. Keep that in mind when we see them literally set a city on fire in the very near future. This entire intro sequence feels so opposite to what I saw on Tutorial Island. That was a well-crafted experience. Not a masterpiece by any means, but it did get the job done, not to mention it felt polished. Okay, minus that one bit with the tank not pulling, but overall it was a decent enough intro. This just feels dated and rushed together. Perhaps it is an old intro left over from Death Knight's introduction, and if so, it really could use some touching up and should be addressed. The only props I can give here, however, is when you finally leave the zone and arrive at the Horde capital, there is this neat little touch of immersion, where the locals throw shit at you and call you slurs for your association with the Scourge. Which, I assume, is what old Lich King's army is called. This is good. You've really pulled me into my character and made previous events have some meaning to them. Nope, never mind, you've gone and ruined it again. Good job, Blizzard. I've been here, at most, 5 minutes. And after handing over a slip of paper, I'm suddenly absolved of all crimes. Sure, maybe the leaders will be more level-headed, but the locals should at least take some time before they stop pelting you with stones. To make this even more jarring, I'm immediately thrust into a storyline where I'm being treated as some sort of trusted and revered champion of the Horde. I'm not joking here. This isn't being played up for a laugh. I have done absolutely nothing of substance, and suddenly I am the hero of the Horde with zero merit or context whatsoever. This hot elf woman gives me a merry band of misfits, and I'm whisked off to some alliance city for a jailbreak, and a very top secret mission that I should absolutely not be trusted with at this juncture in the storyline. The quest itself is fine, if not a little janky, as things have been with the Death Knight so far, including getting dunked into the sea for a few frames before the birds loaded in. There's that good old Blizzard polish you're always hearing about. We break into a prison, stealth our way out, almost don't get caught, set an entire city ablaze. There's that good old misunderstood Horde you're always hearing about. Skedaddle across the sea as the Aztec-looking princess girl bosses us to her homeland and takes us to meet her father. Wait a goddamn second, isn't this just Dawntrail? I know this came out in like 2005 or whatever, but this is just Dawntrail. If anything, is Dawntrail just whatever the fuck this World of Warcraft expansion is? That, however, does not bode well. While I'm faffing about totally not South America, let's take a look at the cash shop. I must say, I am rather disappointed. There's just about everything you'd expect to find and a whole lot of it. Mounts, pets, skins for your gear. While there's nothing inherently wrong about having a cash shop, after all, they do have to make their money somehow. There is a very fine line between keeping the lights on and milking players for every dollar they are worth. Now, granted, this is a game that is over 2 decades old. Maybe, compared to the glams and mounts earned in-game, this is but a small minority. But if that is not the case, then you have to wonder just how many missed opportunities for in-game player rewards have been passed up in favor of being tossed in a cash shop. At least there's no pay-to-win mechanics hiding in here. That would be a real shame if such a thing were to exist. Yep. Blizzard, what the fuck is this? A WoW token? So let me get this straight. You can spend real-world currency to purchase what is effectively a tradable WoW subscription, and then sell it on the auction house for gold. I don't know how I feel about this, I'm going to be honest with you. I suppose it is safer than the alternative and reduces scams to a degree. But on the other hand, it's kind of your job to combat real money trading and scammers anyways. This once again feels like Blizzard taking the path of least resistance and trying to make a quick buck while doing so. Back to the plot at hand. Or really lack of plot, I should say. I'm not entirely sure what's going on. Beyond this map being an absolute nightmare to navigate, quests are extremely simple, and nothing in particular seems to stand out except maybe the one with you flying in a circle throwing turrets on the floor. I won't be too harsh though, this is the early game, the baby steps. Many great stories start off with a slow burn after all. The world itself does have potential, maybe not this zone in particular, but those cutscenes do have me curious about what deeper story there is. I am soon gonna be very disappointed. But for now, I am at least looking forward to learning more about this world and its people. Oh, what the Jesus fucking Christ. A level cap? At level 20? Surely you jest. Surely you did not just roadblock all progress in the first zone that isn't a tutorial. This is just Wizard 101 for adults. I haven't seen free trial gatekeeping this bad since Toontown. Does anyone else remember Toontown? If you remember Toontown, you now have to like and subscribe. The Old Republic, entire base game is free. Final Fantasy XIV, the entire base game, and not one, not two, but now 3 entire expansions and the side content associated with them are also free. Your competitors are laughing at you, Blizzard. This is a game with a $20 monthly subscription, higher price than the others I might add, an in-game cash shop that is flooded with cosmetics, and has paid expansions every 2 years just to keep up and stay current. At the same time, has a free trial less generous than a Costco. Any one or even 2 of these on its own is fine. But all of the above goes well and beyond that line I mentioned earlier. The ego Blizzard must have to price their product as some sort of premium experience compared to the competition is baffling. I'm going to be completely honest, if I was not making this video, the journey would end right here. Nothing I've seen today has impressed me enough to fork over that kind of cash when I could easily have a far better experience for far less somewhere else. So I took a breather. I stepped away for a day, collected my thoughts, and with a small loss of $20 and a shred of my dignity, I decided to give this stupid game one more chance. One single month to show me what it is capable of before I stepped away for good. I do this for you, the people. And with card in hand, I open the launcher and... my fucking god. There's a queue? In all my years, I've never, not one single time, seen a queue to open the launcher. Not the game. We're not talking about the game. We're not talking about the servers. The launcher for the game. Battle.net itself had a queue. I'm aware this is not just a World of Warcraft problem and has nothing to do with World of Warcraft itself. But y'all are the ones who kept WoW exclusively on your launcher, so I'm considering this as part of the true player experience. Hell, I almost bailed out of this silly little endeavor, but alas, the things I do for you. Seriously, why is there a queue on the fuck? Okay, fine. We are past due for some positivity. When you walk up to a guard, you can ask them for directions for any sort of utility you're looking for. Shops, repairs, transmog, whatever the case may be. It even leaves a marker on your map where the nearest NPC is. Speaking of the map, I'm not the biggest fan of it. It is a bit of a confusing mess, and there seems to be very little in terms of icons to show where important things are. But the guard system, however, does make up for this, and I do like the hint of immersion, but maybe do a little better job of introducing it to me at some point. Now, I may be a mere level 20, but I'm starting to get real sick of looking like a dork, so it's time to engage with the real endgame of any self-respecting MMO. The fashion. Introducing Transmog, and the Collections tab alongside it. You see, every time you pick up a piece of gear, it seems to record it to your collection, allowing easy access to it as a fashion piece. No need to store it in some sort of bank or have it dragging around in your bags. Those in and of themselves are a bit of a clunky mess to navigate, by the way. Just make it a menu, would you please? This collection can then be used to craft an outfit at any Transmog NPC. It is a fine enough system. There are no die slots to be found, so the colors are what they are, which does limit options a bit, but overall, it's functional. It works. So we'll just do a little glamming around, and now you're starting to piss me off a little bit, Blizzard. Can you stop reaching into pockets at every opportunity? Only 2 outfit slots? Really? Okay, FF14 gives me 20, and that's still not enough. You're gonna give me 2. You're gonna give me 2 outfit slots, and you're gonna charge me for the rest. World of Warcraft is slowly becoming a rage game as time goes on, and it has nothing to do with the actual gameplay, just the systems that surround it. Let's just move on. At least we can finally see my face now. God, am I good looking. Let's try to look at the positives, shall we? I spend the next few days chipping away at the Zone story, and I've got to admit, I am actually starting to enjoy myself here. It's not the greatest story I've ever seen by any means, but as I get further and further away from that extremely jarring transition into this story arc, I find myself getting somewhat immersed. I'm still not aware of the world building on a large scale or anything, but I do know there's some sort of blood trolls getting up to trouble, summoning some big bad, and that is enough plot for me to at least have a good time. There's a pretty clear pattern forming here. Go to a small subsection of the map, pick up every quest marker available, run around doing all the quests simultaneously, rinse and repeat. It's simple, but it works, and no one zone really overstays its welcome. We run around appeasing various local deities, or killing them on occasion, with some neat little gimmick quests mixed in to break up the monotony. Unlike that janky ship mission in the Death Knight intro, these actually feel pretty well polished and give the illusion of working together with the various friends we make along the way. I especially love the silly little goblin creatures in their mech suit, just saying. The zone itself does look pretty rough and dated in places, but my god, it is a night and day difference having access to flight. They gave me 2 free flying mounts out of nowhere, and honestly, I don't hate this idea. If your game has a more enjoyable experience flying around, why not make it a feature early and easy to access? Now, as dated as it may be, there are some gorgeous views from time to time. That giant blood moon sitting over the necropolis or whatever that thing was looks like a work of art. And it's helped along by the quest guiding you into approaching it from a certain direction to give you that wonderful view. Enemy design is varied enough to not feel too dull. Blizzard has done a solid job here of giving enough enemy density to feel satisfying and give you that power fantasy without overwhelming you. Especially with all my Death Knight chains, I've just been having a good time trying to group as many enemies as possible without them dying or running back to spawn. It's confusing how vast the gap is between the intro I played and what I'm experiencing now, but after speaking to some WoW friends of mine, it all started to click. Remember how awkward it was at the start, going from hated and feared to the Horde's greatest champion and all that? Well, you see, that is because an entire chunk of the main plot got cut from the game in favor of fast-tracking you to a much later expansion to get you to the endgame quicker. This is a really stupid idea. Large swaths of places to see and people to meet removed entirely for the sake of skipping ahead to the supposed good bit. It sure does explain how much more polished Zaladar feels, but it also turns your entire plot into a confusing and hard-to-follow mess. I'm reminded of a little-known dumpster fire called Destiny 2, which I had played for many years. Until one fateful expansion, that is, where Bungie, formerly partnered with one Activision Blizzard I might add, decided to evaporate the vast majority of its base game content and early DLCs into a so-called content vault, which we later found out doesn't exist. Very funny stuff. This created a very confusing divide in the lore, made even worse by the fact that a major character in a brand new expansion was not particularly liked by our heroes. And why is that? Well, because he killed a beloved character in a previous expansion, that's why. But new players wouldn't know that. So to them, Cade was just the funny guy in the trailer that went missing one day. Enough talk about Destiny, as anything named that hasn't been relevant since COVID was still a thing. Let's get back to WoW, as I'm genuinely having a bit of fun with it. You can see the charm and talent put into it by the Blizzard of old. It's just buried in the taint of the Blizzard of today. It's just a damn shame that blasted paywall is placed far too soon, and had I dipped out then, which I would have, if not for this video, the game would have never even had the chance to wow me, and no, I will not be apologizing for the pun. Quick little side note, going AFK makes you sit down. Neat. Back to the story, turns out I accidentally skipped a good chunk in the first zone too, not sure how I managed that. This is why you should really keep that main quest of yours on a rail so that the player doesn't accidentally do things out of order. At the very least, don't let me skip zones. But hey, at least now I understand what's going on around here. It appears that these trolls are turning on the other trolls to bring on the era of Goon. Okay, they claim it's pronounced Gahoon, but let's not lie to ourselves here. These are Goon trolls. The main antagonist is Reddit. I decided to step away from the main plot and look at some of these other quests I've gathered. First up is some sort of war campaign. Sounds fun, though when I approached, I was presented with this. Who is George? George Carlin? Curious George? George Washington? Unclear. It doesn't stop me from collecting a bunch of random quests that I somehow already completed and unlock some sort of follower missions where you send out NPCs to do your bidding. What the point of all this is? Perhaps we'll find out later, as these missions are on a timer. Editing Kuro, we did not find out later. I did not have the patience to finish this game. There was also a map upstairs that seemed to want to take me to my choice of 3 new locations, but for now, there's something else I wanted to look into first. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Arathi Highlands. I noticed this little button on the tutorial tab hinting at some sort of catch-up experience, so I decided, let's give it a go. First off, there are a lot of people here. I have a feeling this is where most new players are told to end up by the community. It does raise the question, however, why not just send us here right after the intro? Why even bother with all that Zandalar stuff? Don't cut that from the game too, of course. That's already part of a problem here. But since it does scale to your level, it could be saved as side content, and I suppose that is kind of the intent of it. But with the way the true tutorial is kept hidden behind a menu is quite odd to me. This place is pretty basic, simple kill and fetch quests that throw a mountain of gear at you. Both Horde and Alliance seem to live in harmony here. Help, Lady Jaina from my rogue playthrough is here, and I'd assume this orc bloke is from the Horde. So, no PvP I imagine, and it seems you can leave and return at any time. I, however, am going to see this to the end. I also somehow unlocked an advanced form of flight along the way, and my god is this fun. This might be the best thing World of Warcraft has ever done so far. Please, do not let this be something I lose once I return to Zandalar. I will be very, very disappointed. And that was fast. That was really fast. Like, that took maybe 15 minutes tops. I spent more time zooming around on the dragon for funsies than actually doing quests. Speaking of dragons, I am now being thrust into something called Dragonflight. Well, this sure sounds more interesting than what we're going to be doing in the Timu Dawn Trail, so let's try it. Editor Kuro again. This is before I realized just how big of a mistake I was about to make. Before that, I was also randomly handed a quest about some sort of trader's tenure. Oh, please don't be a cash shop, please don't be a cash shop, please don't be a cash shop, please don't be a cash shop. Fine, let's go see if this is a cash shop. Oh, thank God it's not. No, it's actually more like a challenge log that gives you a special currency that you can use to get various mounts and glam. And hey, a neat little feature. You can even lock one item at a time to be held indefinitely until you can afford it. We do love to see player-friendly mechanics added to your systems. I gotta admit, I am actually impressed. You did a good thing today, Blizzard. You did a good thing. Anywho, shopping can come later. I want to learn more about these dragonfolk. In fact, I randomly got a couple of dragonfolk added to my mount collection from somewhere. I'm not exactly sure where. Oh well, who am I to complain? Never look a gift dragon in the mouth, as they say. Funny thing is, as I'm working my way through what seems to be an intro to this Dragonflight story, I'm given the very same cutscene I saw after old Randam finished his tutorial island, and sure enough, it is the very same cutscene. I went back and checked. And sure enough, it's also the very same zone that my Worgen ended up in. So is Death Knight just weird? Do all the other jobs naturally get guided into this Dragonflight arc and completely ignore all that Zandalar stuff? And why start Zandalar at all when there's all that stuff prior that would stop it from being so jarring? Blizzard seems about as confused as I am when it comes to the new player experience, but I digress. It would have been a far smoother experience to just throw Death Knight into Arathi, and all the other jobs for that matter, after their respective tutorial zones, just to keep it consistent across the various starts. That being said, maybe it's best to go back to Zandalar because I miss it already. The whole vibe of Dragonflight is just off. It's so sterile, it's so safe. The Alliance first Horde plot is thrown completely out the window. They don't even bother to curate the guest book quest, so of course I signed for the Alliance because fuck you, Blizzard. And why is there a guest book quest anyways? This isn't a dinner party. What's supposed to be this high fantasy epic of dragons and sorcery feels like a poorly written children's film. Dragonflight is what you'd get if ChatGPT wrote How to Train Your Dragon. For example, I want you to take a good long look at this NPC and picture in your mind's ears what it may sound like. Now have a listen.
Do you need my help?
Was your guess the noble squeak of a mighty 12-year-old? Because mine wasn't. What even is this voice acting? Oh, and this rat creature, by the way, doesn't even move his mouth while talking. There's a very short animation once in a while, but you didn't even bother to match the duration to his own dialogue. The quality control here is alarming. Keep in mind, this is an expansion that is just a couple years old, not from 2009. Zandalar was the place to be. We had witches, we had human sacrifices, we had blood cults. The game was a little edgy and dark at times, comically so even. All we have here is Puff the Magic Dragon. If you understood that reference, you now have to like and subscribe. I don't make the rules, old man. Your knees are creaking. I continued playing through Dragonflight for a couple days, a very, very bored couple of days, as any semblance of struggle or challenge seemed to have evaporated. But as my sub is about to expire along with my patience for this game, it's high time we wrap things up. World of Warcraft, from the new player's perspective, is a mess. It has a handful of good ideas. The flight system is fluid and fun. Trader's tenure and the challenge log that comes with it seems fair and respects the player time with minimal FOMO. Skill trees escape the age-old sin of increasing X stat by Y% and kept me excited to get each level and enhance my kit. The skills themselves were also decently engaging at an early level, which helped make combat fun. But a few good features does not a good game make. There was clearly something good here once, but it's become buried under the greed and the lackadaisical nature that Blizzard is known for these days. The way the game is entirely focused on boosting you to the level cap with no regard for story or narrative cohesion tells you everything that you need to know. Blizzard just aims to create a predatory system where you don't just pay a monthly subscription, but an additional, unofficial sub every 2 years when a new expansion drops. There is nothing wrong with charging for a major update. You have to keep the lights on. My beloved Final Fantasy does this too. But the difference is, in Final Fantasy, all expansions prior aren't considered outdated or irrelevant. That narrative that began all the way back in 2013 is there in its entirety to this very day, and a new player beginning now can still experience it as a whole. By demanding that your game revolves around the latest expansion only, by whiplashing new players from plotline to plotline with little to no explanation, you are telling them in order to play the real WoW, they must stay on the current patch or else. Playing this game has felt like trying to watch one of those long-running anime, only instead of in chronological order, you're being thrown around into exclusively filler arcs and they are in a random sequence. World of Warcraft is the epitome of a millennial MMO, riding high on nostalgia bait and memories of better days, speeding players along to the latest expansion to siphon more from your pockets rather than showcasing the 2 decades worth of work and dedication put into crafting this world. Doing the absolute bare minimum necessary to retain the entrenched players it still has, with no effort whatsoever put into embracing the new ones. I did not enjoy my time in Azeroth, and it is a real shame. I came into this with high hopes. I did not want to dislike this game, and I do not want to hate World of Warcraft. The people who play this game deserve better. In fact, I dislike this game so much, I'm half tempted to ditch my usual naming conventions and call this video something else entirely. Perhaps, worst MMO ever. Nah, that'd never catch on. I am giving World of Warcraft 3 glitched peasants suffering an eternal torment out of 10. Thanks to all of you so much for watching. Channel memberships are now available for the first time ever. So, if you like what you see and you'd like to support more of this going forward, you can for only $1 a month. I wonder where I got that idea from. Speaking of stealing really good ideas from really intelligent people, anyone who does is going to have their name put on a little end slide right about here, right at this point in time, this moment of the video. This is where your name here. Maybe I'll put that in the video. Your name here. So, you know, a little incentive for you. Anyways, that is all for now. Until next time.